daily basis, except in the rearview mirror. And I think it's going to start in earnest within the next 2 years. We have about 18 months to 2 years of all of this attempt. Everything that you see going on right now is essentially, under Austrian economics, would be classified as nothing else other than delay. Because like I said, all the damage has already been done. The credit bubble, a credit expansion is what causes all. Everything that they're doing right now is simply trying to delay the effects of that credit expansion from impacting directly on the economy. But the more that they do, the worse they make the problem. And they're making it worse every single day now by all these monetary and liquidity injections and everything that they're doing. And the term facilities, the discount windows, the credit default swaps. It just goes on and on and on. I mean, it is really frightening at this point to me. And so I don't mince words anymore. I used to try and couch a lot of my discussions a year or so. I mean, hey, in the PPEC, when I started in this group, let's see, how many original people do we got here? Dorian, you thought I was insane, didn't you? Yeah. Dorian thought I was, you think I'm insane now?
Not so much.
Okay. I mean, that's the way it's gone. 15 years ago, believe me, anybody I talked to 15 years ago, when I first started becoming aware and started going in, I did my first large-scale bank network in 1988. And that's when I started looking for I started seeing the magic bit machine. Dollar machine in this case, but we called them the bit machines. And that's when I realized that things started happening. Of course, 15 years ago, I'm telling people a lot of the same stuff, and everybody's going, this guy is from Pluto, okay? And then slowly I started moving in on planets. Until now, till probably 2 years ago, I was in orbit around the Earth, right? Now all of a sudden people start realizing that maybe I have my feet planted on the ground, and I'm right here. And trying to get others to understand, number one, you can do things to help yourself, and I think the more you stay involved with PPEC, the more you get involved in understanding and following some of the, looking into some of the information I'm going to give you. In addition to this, I think you'll start recognizing that you're not helpless, you can do things, but you know what? A lot of our financial stuff is going to come a lot closer to home in the next few years, in the next 10 to 20 years. Where the global financial network is going to break up, and something is going to restructure and form that will replace it, but it's going to be much more localized and much more regional in nature, and that there's, I know there's a lot of people that think we're going to a global monetary system. I don't see. I have racked my brain for 5 years trying to figure out how they could set up another system to replicate the system that just fell apart. And how are they going to credit it? Where is the capital going to come, the real capital going to come from to credit it? I can't find a single answer, and I've thought about this a lot. Oh, I was going to use the example. Mainframe. Back in up to the 80s, right, we were a mainframe computer centralized processing world. Everything was dependent upon that centralized processor. Interactive desktop, distributed processing, distributed communications. We had a couple of networks. I remember when we first started trying to move the MasterCard network. MasterCard was a protocol, a network protocol called X.25. That was the only distributed architecture out there until the government privatized IP, TCP/IP, back in 1984, which I don't even know why they did that. But they did, which was kind of good. But because it turned a centralized mainframe architecture world into a fully distributed, robust network architecture that allowed its survival. You know why the internet grew so fast? Because it wasn't reliant on a single point of failure. A centralized mainframe network has one fundamental flaw, that the only way to overcome it is to build an entirely parallel network next to it that you never use until this one fails. Because when it fails, a centrally built network fails, it fails catastrophically. What we have is a centralized monetary system. When it fails, it might fail only once in 100 years, but it fails catastrophically. And that's what we're seeing today. And it's not just the architectural failure, it is the systemic failure of all the platforms that support it and prop it up and keep it running. So I would urge you to get as much information as you can. I appreciate your time and patience. As There's a lot of stuff I didn't cover here. I tried to get through a basic understanding as much as I could, and I hope I got that across, and I hope I didn't bore you. So I thank you very much, and if you have any questions.
Websites.
Yes.
Websites, you're going to.
Yeah, I'll give you, oh, you want the websites? Okay. The first one, the kind of, okay.
You can send it to me and I can send it to everybody.
Or everybody, or you can come up, I can just leave this up and you can come up and copy them off the slide. Okay, that way I don't have to give them out. So we go to questions, yes.
We're in a bad situation, and you indicated at the beginning of your talk it's going to get probably much worse. From your knowledge of all the intricacies, can you suggest 1 or 2 or 3 investments that a person could make that would try to hold a person together during this crisis?
A lot of people think this is really simplistic and at the same time a little bit too dramatic. But I use what I call the 4 Gs. Okay? Guns, gold, ground, and groceries. And those are categories. Those are not literal categories. Those are categories of investment. When I say ground, right, I'm not talking about residential real estate. I'm talking about good ground that is either farmland or some way, or will be commercially viable after this is over, or in some other way. But ground, not residential property, not groceries is commodities, agricultural products. I mean, nobody should even question if anybody's on the guns part. If anybody's following Smith & Wesson and Ruger and every other arms manufacturer out there.
Yes.
Guess what? Their stock is up 30 and 40%.
And they put the main manufacturer, brass, whatever it is.
Yeah, brass. Any of the ammo manufacturers. Ammo you can't find ammo right now. I mean, to me, it's not a reflection on right or wrong about Obama versus, because really, if people were smart, they would have, whether it was President McCain or President Obama, they'd be buying the same amount of guns and ammo in either case, if they were smart about it. Because most of this is outside of the president or the government's control. As I said, under Austrian economics, these conditions were underway long before. They've been underway since 1971, when we delinked from gold. What I want everybody to do is first, before you look at this DVD, before you look at this again, if you're so inclined, is go through the first link that I have listed on the laptop there, which is the Chris Martenson crash course. It covers a lot of the same things, not to the level of detail I did here, but it covers more broadly the entire spectrum of things that are going on right now in association with this or will go on. And it gives you the beginnings of a decision tree of how to make decisions that'll affect your family and you and your community locally. Yes, Steve, you're waiting a long time back there.
I'm just curious if they're talking here about the numbers. When you were talking just a little while ago about GDP being inflated, going back to 71, and this all started back in the 70s and whatnot. The Chinese are not stupid, at least they don't seem like they are. So how is it that wouldn't they have to have some sort of exit strategy? It sounds like, they're in this terrible position, but they're not dumb enough to have not known what's been going on since the 70s.
No, I would say they probably didn't realize until about maybe 6 years ago, 7 years ago. What do you think, Paul? It's been very recent. Because look at what's happened. Go to any mainstream economic expert, and listen to them every day. 98% of them, just a year ago, were forecasting little if any recession, little if any economic dislocation of any kind. This was just a minor little thing we're going to ride through and it'll be over and done. And I mean, you still got Helicopter Ben out there saying by the end of the year we'll be out of recession. But then you listen to all of these caveats that they throw on it, you suddenly realize, what they're saying is just become outright BS.
Right, that's one of the questions that earlier, because you talked about being directly inflationary versus not being indirectly inflationary. My understanding is inflation is an increase in the money supply.
Correct.
Okay. Well, if you have large systemic failures that wipe out large amounts of money, you know, there was a number here that came out recently, you know, that
50
real
trillion.
wealth was diminished by some trillions of dollars.
50 trillion.
Okay, so $50 trillion